So I often get asked, what is service design? It's a new thing in Australia at least, but in Europe it's been something that's been around for quite some time. And it's something that's in your business already. You just maybe don't realise it. It really is about designing better business. So let's break it down a little bit. We have design, so to plan skillfully with intent to a purpose, aligning it to the purpose of your business. Better, making something superior. Better quality, something that people will choose over another service. Business, we all know that one. It's about the sale of goods or services to essentially make a profit. So how does service design tie into that? It's really about crafting the experience and the delivery of that product or service to make a better impression, to improve business. Because we're all in business to make a difference and to hopefully improve our business in the same breath. And essentially, people do business with people. It's a human interaction. So service design makes it a human-centric delivery of your service. Let's pull it back to brand. What is brand? It's not your logo, it's not a business card, it's not the decal on your car or the sign on your building. And it's certainly not what you say it is, it's what your customers say it is. So have a think about a brand as a person. It's the personification of your business. It connects with people. It has values that it's upholding. And it stands for something, whether that's intentional or not. If brand is the personification of your business, how do you want people to feel about your business? How do you want to introduce yourself? How do you want to interact with them along the journey that they go on with you? Then there's the nitty-gritty. So we have the big picture of a brand, and then there's the intricacies of delivering your service. The business cards that you send out, the proposals, the invoices at the end of the journey. And then all of those things in between, the phone calls, people visiting your warehouse or your office. Have you ever thought about what your customer experiences at every single one of those touch points? As I said, every business already has a journey. It's just whether it's been designed intently or not, and to align with your business and where you'd like to see it go in the future. Intentional design. If you think of something like Coles or Woolworths, they intentionally get you to walk all the way to the back of the store to pick up your bread or your milk, that necessity, probably the one and only thing that you're going to get that day. And yet you have to walk past hundreds, if not thousands of other products to get your milk or bread. That's been intentionally designed to make sure that you meet their business objectives, selling more goods and hopefully owning more of the market, or multiple markets, as we know. Another positive example would be Apple. They're a very customer-centric brand, as most of us know. And because of this customer-centric or human-centric approach, they redefined the experience of buying electronic goods. You can now go into an Apple store, and many others that have copied them, and pick up a piece of equipment, play with it until your heart's content, fall in love with it, hopefully, or tell people about it. And you can do that in your own time by yourself, or you can have an expert by your side, or a genius, as Apple calls them. These are both examples of intentional customer journeys or service-designed experiences. I thought I'd give you an example of a company that we worked with, a before and after picture of what service design looks like. And I picked this example because I think it's an experience that all of you may or may not have had, and that's having a blood test. Sullivan Nicolaides is a pathology company that I'm sure most of you would know of. And we came in and looked at what their service was like before service design. So before, imagine 5 years ago where you were at a GP and you needed a blood test. So you'd be given a piece of paper. It would either have, if you're in Queensland, Sullivan Nicolaides or QML. Very rarely would you get another brand on there. And whichever one it had on there was the one that you needed to go to because that was your referral piece of paper. You didn't have a choice of where you were going. You'd go to the collection centre that was probably closest to you, and you'd rock up to a fairly nondescript place, a little bit drab interior, and in some cases you'd be feeling really quite upset or worried because this is your health that you're dealing with. And you'd walk in, no one would greet you, you'd sit down or you'd yell out and see if anyone was there, and sort of sit down in this place. And in Sullivan Nicoledes' example, there was a lot of red being a really bad colour if you're already anxious. So you'd be sitting there thinking, is someone going to come and get me? And then eventually someone comes and gets you and asks you to come down to the bleeding chair. Bleeding chair, okay. So you'd walk down and have to sit in this absolutely gigantic grey chair that kind of consumed you, and sit down and hope for the best and look anywhere but your arm, as a very professional person would be taking your blood test. You'd find sort of clutter around you, focus on everything, go out of there thinking, wow, good, that's over. Now, when do I get my results? So that wasn't really a positive experience and not something that people would choose to do. I don't think so anyway. Step forward about 3 years ago, and legislation changed. Sullivan Nicoledes now found themselves having to talk to patients directly. They'd never had to speak to patients. They were always speaking to GPs and building that network referral base. So suddenly there was this new audience that was picking between, now there were multiple offerings in the market as well, and they really didn't know how to talk to them, what their needs were, or what was their difference. So we were pulled in as part of a much bigger communications team to evaluate what the current journey was like. And we worked with the executive team to work out also where they wanted to take their business from a strategic point of view. With that in mind, we then interviewed more than 12,000 patients to really understand deeply what their concerns were, the extremes of people who really found a blood test quite traumatic to people that really it didn't mean much because it was a weekly excursion for them and they were used to it. Christian, who's in the audience, even sat down in collection centres and interviewed people as they were on their way in and out of their blood tests, just to understand what emotions they were going through at that time. And again, to sort of build a better picture for us to understand deeply. And finally, we talked to the staff, the ground staff, who were working with the people on the phone, the call centre staff, the pathologists, again, to round out our understanding of what the true questions and the true issues were for people visiting the collection centres. With all of that insight in mind, we built a strategy and also built some customer journeys for different types of customers. One of which was to really look at how we could improve the collection centre experience. There's Christian. So we started with the obvious things that you get people into a collection centre with. The websites, the GP information that they were gaining before they actually got to even choose which collection centre they were going to. Knowing that not all collection centres could do all the tests that you need to do. So equipping people with information so they knew what they needed to do fasting or what they had to eat or drink beforehand. So then once we got them to the collection centre, we looked at how could we redesign it and redefine what that experience was going to be like. We removed the red and we introduced, as much as possible, things that would calm people, things that would make them feel at ease as soon as they walked into the door. There was nature used in graphics. There was, we even designed what scent would be there and some music. And we also looked at things that were going to be viable for the organisation. So having a receptionist, someone to greet the person as they came in, is a very expensive and unachievable thing to have in the business. So we replaced that by introducing a screen that, in between running some information graphics to share knowledge of what Sullivan Nicoledes had as far as the skill base was, we also used people a photo of the person who was going to come and collect you to take your blood test, introduce you by name, and have a little bit of a description about that person. So you had a good feeling for who was about to walk around the corner. Then you'd get taken down to a green chair. No longer the word bleeding was used. And we used mechanisms to try and almost distract people, to give them something better to look at than clutter, because there's medical things that need to be there. But we also minimised what needed to be visible, just by making countertops a little bit higher, hiding elements, just so that it would be a lot more streamlined. We used puzzles, riddles, all sorts of things on the walls, so that they could also just happily have their blood test and it would be over before they knew it. So that's an example of a before and after of service design. It's that intricate detail and looking at how we could align the needs of the customer, or the patient in this case, and create a better journey for them. To us, it's designing better business. So to leave you with a few ways that you can introduce service design thinking into your own businesses, I'd start with why. Simon Sinek has a great book. If you haven't already read it, I'd highly recommend it. But we start with why from a brand strategy point of view, so understanding deeply what the purpose of the business is beyond making money. Think around that and really make sure that your brand represents that accurately. Then I'd suggest that you start listening. Listen to your customers, listen to your team, the people who are interacting with your customers on a day-to-day basis. Ask questions and listen. You can use free tools like SurveyMonkey, any number of tools out there, to really start to gather some information and understand where there's room for improvement. And finally, I'd suggest start mapping your journey. What does it look like right now? The only way that you can really improve it is to know where it's at now, what the business strategy is, and how you might align the two to ultimately build business.